Hey, I'm Ted Santos from Straight Talk, and I come to you every Sunday, 7 p.m. And we are the talk show made for men by men. Except, ladies, I promise you'll never want to miss a show. And we have a great one coming up this Sunday, tomorrow. And we are going to talk about something that probably every human being on the planet experiences. It's called cognitive dissonance. And no, it's not a mental disorder. It is when a person receives information that conflicts with their current belief systems. So, if I tell you about a guy named Robert Goddard, who was an aeronautics engineer, and in the 1920s he said, one day, man will make it to the moon. Well, the New York Times experienced cognitive dissonance because they wrote an article saying that Goddard was sort of an imbecile. They wrote a very insulting article about him. And needless to say, by 1969, they had to write another article apologizing when man did make it to the moon. So part of what makes it cognitive dissonance for them is because they believed it was impossible in the 1920s. And what makes it more interesting is the New York Times is an organization that is investigative. They get the facts before they start writing stories on something. Well, they didn't do any of that. They didn't ask Goddard anything. They just accused him and defamed him. If I give you another example, this one might hit home for some of you. So, women can experience cognitive dissonance when they are taught from the time they are little girls that all boys and men want one thing. That's all that we want. And then they grow up to meet a guy who doesn't want that. Or he wants more than that. And that conflicts with him. You know, and if you think about it, if women believe that men only want one thing, then they are in conflict with themselves by even getting into a relationship with a man who they believe only wants them for one thing, and they don't want to experience that. So technically, women should avoid all men if they believe men only want one thing, except they don't. They go into relationships, then when they meet a guy who says, hey, I need more than that, now the woman is in even more conflict. And that's when she's in a state of cognitive dissonance. And you know, some of the ways you know people are experiencing cognitive dissonance is they feel uncomfortable, it's a conflict, they avoid it, they shame, or they even try to justify, make excuses, rationalize it. Or they will, in some cases, absolutely conflict and invalidate it because they have to support what they know. They believe that men only want one thing, and when they meet someone who says, I need more than that, now they're in conflict with that man. So I want to have a conversation about cognitive dissonance and how it can actually destroy your life, especially your love relationships. So we're going to have this conversation tomorrow, and we're going to talk about how once people believe something, in the words of Jean-Paul Sartre, who is a French philosopher, he said, once people believe something, they go out of their way to prove what they know is right. So we're going to deal with that and talk about it and what you can actually do about it, because no one is stuck with it. So tomorrow, October 6th, 7 p.m., Straight Talk, and we are going to dive into cognitive dissonance. And we're going to help you get some consonants. So I'll talk to you tomorrow.